that we take an almost absolute hard line when it comes to human rights violations. Quite often you'll find with particular products and funds that they are using ESG scores or certain metrics where certain companies can, for instance, really elevate their score based on the way they report or the amount of reporting they're able to deliver.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Ethical Screening Managing Director Mike Head, as well as Sales and Client Manager Jonny White. Very good to speak to you both. Mike, I'll start with you. For investors who haven't come across it before, what is the Jury Global High Dividend UCITS ETF and what gaps are trying to fill?
It's an odd thing because, as you'll know, the way that the market has developed over the last, goodness knows, decades, we started out with very general funds, and then we've ended up with those alongside thematics. And there are, within the sustainable space, you've got forestry and water, and within the unsustainable space, you've got defense. And effectively, what Jury does and what the Justice Company tried to do was to look and to say, it's a thematic fund, but with as big a theme as you could possibly choose, as in it's looking at human rights. And it's trying to look at the current world that we find ourselves in, where there's a lot going on that people look at and recoil and saying, is that really where you want to be invested? Is that really where you want to be making your profit? And so that was the sort of that was the genesis of the fund, if you like.
So how does it work, Mike? The fund combines high dividend investing with human rights screening. How do these two objectives work together in practice?
It's one of those things that, as you will know, when you're trying to put a fund together, particularly a new one, you don't want to be a copycat. You want to do something slightly different. And we also looked in terms of there is a family money behind this and where they would want to invest. This is almost one of those elements of the investors couldn't, or the sponsors, whatever, couldn't find the product that they wanted. And the product that they wanted was this. The Jury is the first, the intention being not that there will be a fleet, but there will be other human rights aligned opportunities that will coincide, if you like. And so the starting point was to say, what sort of product index would we like to create? And trying to also make it viable so that the combination of the human rights alignment across the high dividend payer, but at some point in the future, I think it's quite likely that there would be a growth option as well, so that will fit the two main requirements for investors.
Jonny, many funds claim to invest responsibly. What makes your human rights screening process different from traditional ESG investing?
So the aspect that really defines our product as being unique is the fact that we take an almost absolute hard line when it comes to human rights violations. Quite often you'll find with particular products and funds that they are using ESG scores or certain metrics where certain companies can, for instance, really elevate their score based on the way they report or the amount of reporting they're able to deliver. Quite often we find in sustainability spaces, for instance, very large environmentally damaging companies can get a very good ESG score because it's propped up by their social and governance related documents, while on balance that they're doing quite a lot of damage to the environment, for instance. This tries to remove that element and have an absolute hard line when it comes to those human rights violations. So we try to be as objective as we can be, drawing on methodology documents that we've developed in-house at Ethical Screening, on our kind of 30 plus years of ethics-based research that the company's undertaken, and in doing so, using UN guiding principles for human rights as well as other legal documentation where appropriate, and really emphasize the fact that this is a human rights related screen that is screening out the most egregious human rights that companies could potentially be involved in.
Why donate part of the fee? 10% of the fund's management fee goes to humanitarian initiatives. Why was it important, Jonny, to build that into the ETF from day one?
There's twofold, I suppose, from the product itself. So it is, as I said in my last answer, in terms of having that negative screening element. So we want to ensure that people are able to avoid risk and avoid the ethical concerns that they would want from investing in this product, but also then having a sense of knowing that that management fee, the 10% of TER, that management fee is going towards proactive schemes as well, and ensuring that human rights is not just something where we negatively screen for, but actively promote. And that was part of the overall mission of the company, the Justice Company, but then also the Justice Company Foundation, that we are being not just negative in the sense of removing companies that weren't investable from our perspective, but also having that proactive approach to charity, as well as promoting kind of human rights more globally, especially in a time where that seems to have taken a back seat from an international standpoint.
Well, with that in mind, Mike, who's the fund for? Who do you see as the ideal investor, and why might now be a good time to consider this ETF?
It's quite difficult to say who the ideal investor is for any product. I think what we're trying to do more than anything else is to make people aware of the fact that from when I started as a financial advisor in the 1980s, I know, hard to believe, but it's true, that things have changed an awful lot, and that in a world previously where ethical was everything, so that it was purely about avoidance. And subsequently, it's not that ESG and SDG and positive themes and impact haven't been hugely beneficial in many ways, and the whole sustainability thread. But the reality is that it feels as though human rights has got a little bit left behind. And there's an expectation from investors that perhaps they think that these things would be avoided anyway. And the discovery that they're not, recent research that we carried out where 59% of SFDR Article 8 funds holds defense companies, and we're talking not just conventional weapons. So I think it's people who are actually looking at the state of the world, and there are so many conflicts going on. And as ever, it's women and children that tend to suffer most. And as an investor, if that's the thing that really concerns you, then you have an opportunity to avoid the very worst of the worst. We're not trying to solve all the world's ills. We're not looking at, there are so many other areas that already cover that. This is a very much a single focus, human rights under attack. And here's the way to not be profiting from that.
Well, Mike, Jonny, that's a great story. I hope you continue to keep us updated with your progress.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Yes, we will do.
That's Ethical Screening Managing Director Mike Head and Sales and Client Manager Jonny White.